From the congressional perspective, all of this is putting the cart before the horse. The Constitution says Congress has the power to declare war. The president is the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy and the militias in times of actual conflict, but that means he executes the will of Congress. So this whole thing has been backwards from the beginning. Without getting into the merits of what happened, we've got to get back to regular constitutional order.
Can I ask you about that, Congressman? Because I think it is understandably tempting to frame this question of constitutionality as it relates to war powers in terms of Donald Trump. But this headline from NBC News caught my attention. I wanted to make sure you and I talked about it. Presidents ordering military action without Congress's approval has become routine. Here's why. Unlike tangible consequences Trump has faced for other moves in which he tested the bounds of executive power, such as court rulings against him, any price he might pay for this decision would largely play out in the American political arena and on the world stage, where the U.S. reputation is on the line. As someone who thinks a lot about the Constitution, Congressman, how much of what we are seeing is the continuation of a pattern, and how much of this is specific to Donald Trump?
No, it is very much a continuation of a pattern, and part of it is executive usurpation of Congress's war-making power, and part of it is, frankly, congressional surrender of its powers over the decades. A lot of members of Congress say, well, look, let's not get involved in this. If it goes well, we can say we were with you the whole way. If it goes poorly, we can say it was the president's fault. But that's an abdication of our proper constitutional assignment. We have not just a right and a power to be the ones to declare war. We've got a responsibility and a duty to be the ones to debate all of the many factors and considerations that go into it. And not just on TV, but actually in the parliamentary context where we vote on it.
General Platkin, you attended this forum today, and the conversation now sort of leveling up this idea of, okay, we know this is unconstitutional what this president is doing. I laid out a few of the things in the intro, but it's beyond just what we see with the War Powers Act. It's beyond what we see with the assault on the 14th Amendment. At the core of the anchor of all of this has been, and I talked about it in our last segment, dealing with the humanity of individuals and using the government against them. You noted today the absurdity of Trump's administration's argument on citizenship executive order at the forum today. Let's take a quick listen to that.
To be arguing to the highest court in the land that a baby born in the United States' citizenship should turn on whether the attorney general of their state joined a lawsuit. That was fundamentally what they were arguing. They weren't even contesting whether this is constitutional. Well, in New Jersey, we are a small, dense state. A lot of mothers choose to cross the border into Philadelphia to give birth. Is it really the position of the United States government, this is what we were asking, that that child's citizenship turns on whether that mother is at the supermarket when they go into labor across the river?
There it is. I mean, and so there is a complete storyline that is not just about the obvious stuff, but the everyday stuff that impacts the humanity and the families and the communities of people out there.
That's right. And I thank Representative Raskin and his colleagues in the House and the Senate for having us and lifting up this work. Look, the rule of law, I think, has been talked about a lot, and a lot of times it feels abstract, even to me. But it's not abstract when we're talking about that mother giving birth to a child in Philadelphia, not knowing if her son or daughter is going to be an American citizen. It's not abstract to parents of kids with autism whose services were yanked away from them, or for people on Medicaid, or for law enforcement, as has happened in New Jersey, who have been cut. These are real harms. And the reason why we have a rule of law is so that people can't be hurt arbitrarily based on the whims of a president, the way a king or a tyrant could do. We as a nation came together and gave Representative Raskin and his colleagues the authority to establish the laws, and the president has a constitutional obligation to follow it. And when he doesn't, real people get hurt.
More forums, please. We like the forums. And I say that to say a lot of the argument nowadays from folks, people say, oh, Simone, you're being very critical. You all are always asking what the Democrats are doing. But I think the Democrats matter because in a government where we are talking about that is, as the as the general noted, we are a nation of laws, not men.
Yep.
And in a government where we are a nation of laws and not men, I think the opposition party, the Democrats in this case, they should be standing up and asserting their constitutional authority as a co-equal branch of government. Can we expect more forums such as these from not just you as the ranking member of your committee, but from other committees that the Democrats have as well?
I mean, as long as the senators are willing to share their rooms with us, because the House Republicans are very, very stingy about sharing the rooms. And so Senator Durbin was very psyched to do this, and it was great. It was bicameral. We had Democratic senators, we had Democratic House members. Of course, we couldn't get any Republicans to show up, but we had the great attorneys general from Massachusetts and Jersey and Illinois, and who else was there?
Minnesota.
In Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who was in Congress. But they talked about being on the front lines of this struggle. The Democrats in the House basically don't have standing to go to court to challenge all of these things, because the courts have very restrictive standing doctrines when it comes to members of Congress suing to just get the law enforced. So we're piggybacking on them, and we're filing amicus briefs alongside them and winning, you know, in a whole bunch of these cases. It's really impressive. And we just won one from Maryland versus Trump, about AmeriCorps. You know, they think they can just dismantle federal agencies, whether it's USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or AmeriCorps. And that's lots of young people's lives that they've poured into that. Lots of communities depend on it. And the district court enjoined it, struck it down, saying, no, you can't just shut it down when Congress has set it up and Congress has funded it. And that's the basic structure of what we were talking about today. The House passes legislation. The Senate passes legislation. The president signs it into law. And then the president changes his mind and says, I'm not going to enforce it, when his job is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. And so it reminded me of watching my kids one time. They were talking for like 3 hours about what kind of pizza to get. And all the nieces and nephews were there, and they decided, okay, we're going to get pepperoni pizza with pineapples. But then the cousin that went to go pick it up changed it around and got hamburger and sausages on it, just because they were the ones to go get it when it had already been decided legislatively. And that's what Donald Trump keeps doing. He circumvents the entire lawmaking democratic process and decides, because he's the one who's supposed to write the checks, that he can just thwart the whole process.
I know Alicia's got a question, but I just real quick, I want to say, why can't those other two cousins jack up the ones who got the sausage and the hamburger? And so the point is, the Congress should be able to jack up the president legally on this and go into a court and say, we wrote the law. We know what the congressional intent was. Why can't you do that?
Well, because the Republicans refuse to do it, because they've completely surrendered and are invertebrate right now. They will not stand up to Trump on anything, and the courts won't allow us in as the minority party. So we have no way in other than we have, you know, great public interest groups that are moving forward, like, you know, Democracy Forward and State Democracy Defenders. But the state attorneys general, these lawyers represent the people. And the point that they were making, and Keith Ellison made this today, was, look, our representatives go to Congress, pass these laws. That's for the people. So we, the state, have an interest in seeing that the law will be enforced against a runaway president.
Congressman, you had Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling the president's decision to bomb Iran without authorization a grave violation of the Constitution, saying it is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Just real quickly, do you agree?
I couldn't read the whole thing, but it sounds like I agree with that it's an absolute violation of the Constitution.
It's the grounds for impeachment piece that I want you to weigh in on. It's that right there at the end.
Well, without saying what anybody should do in any particular situation, undoubtedly a violation of the war powers of Congress, the usurpation of the war powers of Congress, would be an impeachable offense, would be a high crime and misdemeanor. I mean, you know, Israel said, we've just, in what Israel did on its own, we set them back 2 or 3 years. So that's not an emergency. Remember, the president can only assert the power to use military in a context in which there's an imminent threat to us. And that clearly wasn't there. So we can add this to a very long list of things where the president has violated the spending power. I mean, the states brought an action because the president unilaterally imposed a spending freeze on laws passed by Congress, signed by the president for $1 trillion in spending. They wanted to hold up all of these federal public health programs, housing programs, local policing programs, just out of the blue. Where does he get the doctrine that he can just do that? He just pulls it out of a hat. Well, the court struck it down, and gratefully, the states are there. But obviously, talk of impeachment today when we're in the minority and we can't even get Republicans to vote with us on a single bill to try to restore sanity is somewhat hypothetical. But I'm with my friend AOC in saying we've got to keep a very strict catalog of all of the violations of the Constitution that are taking place.